Leody Taveras is hurt and could miss the start of the season. Does that mean the Rangers' top prospect, Evan Carter, is ready for his big league debut to take over in center field? Plus, the Rangers signed a lefty bullpen specialist, and Cole Ragans might be the most important story in spring training for the Texas Rangers. I'll get into all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment almost any single thing below. The important news that came out today this morning is that Leody Taveras is hurt. He has suffered what they are calling a, quote, low-grade oblique strain, end quote, and will be shut down for the next 7 to 10 days. Now, it doesn't sound like a huge alarming deal. We are still 34 days away from opening day, so maybe you're thinking, why is there panic? Well, oblique strains are nothing to play with. Obliques are awful. I have a vendetta against obliques and hamate bones. Both of those things I have a personal vendetta against because of what they have done to Texas Rangers players. More so against the hamate bone, I guess, because it's more of a useless bone that just breaks and then makes you out for a while. But the oblique is really picking up there. In case you're wondering where the oblique is, it's in your side. So it is like the left side tightness that we have now heard of. This is the third Rangers player to suffer left side tightness. It was just that a few days ago. They reevaluated him and upgraded it to a low-grade oblique strain. And obviously that's what Jacob deGrom had. That is what Nathan Eovaldi has. So, I mean, once is like, okay, that thing happens. Twice to 2 different pitchers, it's like, okay, that's kind of interesting. 3 times it feels like there's a conspiracy. Levi Weaver on Twitter said that, normally left side tightness isn't communicable, but I'm starting to think that it might be. Maybe there's some I don't know, left side tightness virus, because three different players in the same camp within a 2-week span just feels like a conspiracy. Like, I know it's not, and I'm not normally a big conspiracy guy, but like, I don't know, something feels up. And oblique strains are really nothing to mess with, especially when you're a pitcher or a hitter. I mean, baseball is very much, you need your core. You need to be able to turn your body, because when you are swinging the bat, you are turning your body. When you are throwing pitches, when you are, making plays and making throws in the field, you are turning your body. So you need those muscles to be as they should be. I mean, the reason that I have a vendetta against obliques is because, well, you all know my undying love for Joseph Nicholas Gallo and his 2019 breakout season that was ruined by an oblique strain. It took him out for a long, long time. It was also what befell John Gray towards the end of last year. He also had an oblique strain that kept him out for, I believe, 6 to 8 weeks. It was a pretty important chunk of the season that he was just gone. The Rangers rotation was absolutely decimated during that, but this is a tough look for Leody. Last year was really full of some ups and downs for Leody. I mean, he came up to the big leagues, and in that first half, he was fantastic to start the season in the minor leagues, because the Rangers are like, no, he was absolutely terrible in 2021. It's just a really, really rough year for him. Just incredibly unlucky, and just everything did not go his way. So he started the season on fire in the minor leagues, got called up, and was absolutely incredible for the first half of the season before that All-Star break. He played in 30 games for the Rangers in that first half, hit .341 on base, 367, slugged .553, a whole bunch of doubles that were kind of a little bit fluky, a lot of bloop doubles, but he's incredibly fast, so he's going to make some of those bloop singles into bloop doubles because of how fast he is. He had a 920 OPS in those first 30 games, 3 home runs as well, 5 stolen bases to just 2 times caught stealing. Wasn't quite as good on the base pass this year as he was in 2 years past. He had a combined 18 for 19 on stolen base attempts in his first 2 years at the big league level. We'll see if that improves a little bit this year, but he was still as amazing as he has ever been defensively. We all know how great he is. Outs above average, the top 13% of baseball. Sprint speed, top 5% of baseball. Arm strength in the top 62% of baseball. Kind of knew about his other tools defensively of how he gets great reads, how he's very, very fast. And he didn't have as great a reads last year, so had some weird defensive lapses that felt very uncharacteristic for him. More towards the end of the season when things were not going his way offensively, because in the second half, he was not anywhere near what he was in that first half. 69 games there, which is a nice sample size, but a 585 OPS as opposed to the 920 OPS he had in the first half of last year. So there were some questions about if he was going to still be the Rangers opening day center fielder, if there's going to be some more time for somebody else to take over in center field. And I think the obvious answer for long term is probably going to be Evan Carter. I think Evan Carter's ceiling is higher than Leody Taveras', but we've been hearing about Leody for so long, and he hasn't quite lived up to the offensive expectations defensively. I mean, he's still very young. He's going to be 24 this year, and it feels like we've been hearing about Leody Taveras for basically since he was signed at the age of 16, because there's just been a lot of talk about him, a lot of prospect fatigue on this guy. But I really still think there is a very good major leaguer in there in Leody Taveras. I hope that he can get past this and still be healthy for opening day, and it's not that serious. But in looking up MLB.com, they have a big fun little write-ups about certain types of injuries. And one of the things that they said about oblique strains is that a grade 1 strain, hitters usually take 27 days to recover from that. Opening day, like I said, is 34 days away. So if he does take that average time, I mean, oblique strains come in all kinds of different grades. Sometimes they can last up to multiple months that players miss. I don't think this one is that serious, but just kind of being precautionary. This is also kind of what it looked at with the Jacob deGrom injury. Pitchers take a little bit longer to recover from this. Usually on grade 1 strains, they take about 34 days. But those are the more serious ones. I don't think deGrom's or Eovaldi's were super serious. By the way, also John Gray was scratched from his last start with back tightness. So I think I talked about that on Friday's episode. But just kind of injuries are kind of rolling around camp. So it's just kind of a weird place the Rangers are in right now. I'm thinking that Leody should be eventually fine. But I do want to look at some candidates and rank the guys who I would feel most comfortable being in center field while Leody is on the injured list. We're going to get into 6 candidates that I have to fill that spot if Leody misses significant time. But first, this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all the fat and calories, then you have got to try yourself a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, it feels like, and we're heading into spring. If you're trying to work on that summer bod or your spring break bod, or just trying to eat healthier in general and, maintain those New Year's resolutions 3 months in, if you're still going on it and we're in March, then props to you. I know I'm still doing my best to try and eat healthy, and Built Bar is a great way to do that without sacrificing on taste. They are so incredibly good. They're covered in 100% real chocolate, and they are good for you. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and with a whopping 17 grams of protein. I don't know if they've got wizards employed by Built Bar that are making these things delicious yet healthy. I have to think that they're some kind of, magic, either, maybe dark magic. I don't know. I don't want to project that on them, but even if they are, whatever they're doing, it's absolutely working. So you've got to try yourself a box. You can either order them at built.com and you can wait for them to get to you if you want to get exactly your specific type of Built Bars, or you can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club and pick them up and not have to wait on all that shipping like you used to in the dark ages before the now times. So go pick yourself up a box of Built Bars. You've got to try them. You can thank me later. Now, let's rank the top 6 candidates to replace Leody Taveras in center field while he is out. Number 1, we have Adolis Garcia. 57 games in center field last year. Was a primary center fielder in 2021 in his breakout All-Star season, where he should have won Rookie of the Year. Thank you to Sporting News for being the only true outlet who I respected in their vote, that Baseball Writers of America Association put him in 4th, but we're totally over that. Clearly I'm not still bitter about it, but I think that Adolis Garcia is the likely candidate. The question after that comes, all right, well, then who's going to play in right field? That kind of moves Robbie Grossman over there, and then we'll see what happens in left field. So all these guys are kind of going to play a part in stepping up while Leody is out. Number 2, I think it's Bubba Thompson is where I feel comfortable and where like the Rangers are probably leaning. He only played 9 games in center field at the big league level last year, but I mean, he has got the elite speed. He was in the 100 percentile of sprint speed. He's either number 1 or number 2 fastest players in all of baseball last year. The arm strength is nowhere near what Leody has, but it's fine. He takes some good routes. He has gotten much better at his taking defensive routes, and he's obviously got the elite speed to make up for any bad jumps or bad reads he gets off the bat. So I think that he is definitely a candidate there. I don't like him as much as Adolis Garcia as a everyday guy, but he has definitely got the tools to do so, and I think he's also got the tools to be on this big league roster. But they're going to have some interesting questions about him, whether they want to put him down to AAA and make him get some more everyday at-bats, or if they think like, yeah, kind of Bubba Thompson last year, that's his ceiling. He's just going to be an elite speed guy, a great stolen base threat, because they're going to want to have someone like that on their roster to take advantage of these new rules. If they don't have Leody, then Bubba Thompson is that guy. Number 3 on my rankings, I'd have Ezekiel Duran. He only played 17 career games in the outfield. I believe the majority of those have been in center field. If my recollection is correct from what I just looked at like 3 seconds ago, yes, 10 games in center field, 7 games in left field for his career in the minor leagues, and then in the Dominican Winter League, he played 1 game in center field and 5 games in left field, 9 games total in the outfield in the Dominican Winter League this year. So he is definitely working on being an outfielder, because the infield is pretty much tapped out, and I think that he is going to be an everyday guy at some capacity. I think the center field could be a likely spot for him. Maybe ended up putting him in right field because he's got such a huge cannon of an arm, but it seems like that's where the Rangers are leaning towards him. I don't think that he has done as well in camp, or the Rangers haven't been as impressed with him as I expected. I thought that Ezekiel would win the left field job out of camp. I didn't expect a Robbie Grossman signing, but here we are. The Rangers wanted a veteran, a sure thing, and I think Duran's ceiling is probably higher than Grossman, but when you're going for wins, you are going to be competitive. You kind of want that veteran stability, so I kind of get the Robbie Grossman thing. Number 4, I have Evan Carter. Yeah, he is a 20-year-old who has 6 regular season games above high A, and however many there were in the playoffs, because for some stupid reason, Baseball Reference and literally every other place does not have postseason stats. So the Rough Riders, in case you forgot, they won a Texas League championship last year, and Evan Carter was the center fielder in that championship run, and he was fantastic there. So he has more than 6 games above high A. It's not many more. I think there were at most 15 games in that postseason run. Not a very long postseason, like 3 series, whatever the plural of series are. But he was fantastic in the playoffs, and he was fantastic in his short stint in Frisco, and he's been fantastic in all of his minor league stints. He only had 32 games in his first professional season in 2021 as an 18-year-old with an on-base of .438 in 146 plate appearances in full season ball as an 18-year-old. Just absolutely incredible. Back injury wrecked the rest of that season, and would have liked to seen a little bit more from him that season, but came back and was healthy, played 100 games in Hickory, 3.5 years younger than the average player as a teenager, had an on-base of .388, slugged .476 while playing center field almost entirely. Also had 10 triples, 18 doubles, and 11 home runs, and not quite more walks and strikeouts, 59 walks to 75 strikeouts, but still a very, very good rate. And then in those 6 games in Frisco, if it wasn't for his teammate Thomas Sajaci being fantastic in his first week in AA, Evan Carter would have won Frisco or Texas League Player of the Week in that 1 week he was there, because he hit .429 with an on base over .530 and slugged over .700 in those 6 games at AA. Going into the season, I thought that he was probably going to start the season in AA this year. Heading into camp. And then probably breeze through that pretty quickly, maybe earn a promotion in like June or something to AAA. And then the end of the year, if he continues to crush it in AAA, then maybe he'd get a taste of a cup of coffee in the big leagues. But I don't know. It's seeming like he's just better than that. Like, it seems like he might take over that job in center field. I think eventually that job might be his. If it depends on how good offensively Leody is. If it makes more sense to put Evan Carter in left field because he doesn't have the elite speed or the elite arm or the defensive instincts of Leody. Not to say his are bad. I think he's going to be a good, well above average defensive center fielder, but Leody is just incredibly special defensively, and that is where almost all of his value comes from. So if you're going to have Leody be an everyday player, then you got to put him in center field, and that's just the whole deal. And then you have an outfield defense of the future of Leody in center, Adolis in right field, or maybe it's Ezekiel Duran, and then Evan Carter in left field, and that's absolutely fantastic. But number 5 in my rankings of these guys playing center field in Leody's absence, I have Josh Smith. He played 16 games in center field in 2022. I don't believe any of those were at the big league level. I'm pretty sure all of those were in AAA, but he's got some of those games under his belt and a little bit of time in the outfield as a big leaguer in left field. And number 6, we have Robbie Grossman, who has 39 career games in center field. He is the last time he had more than 2 games in a season, not 2 starts, just 2 games where he played in center field in a regular season in Major League Baseball was 2014. So basically a decade ago. So I don't think we're going to see much of Robbie Grossman in center field. He'd probably be there over, whatever other random person they might stick in there. Like, I don't think we're going to see any Brad Miller in center field or at shortstop, by the way. But going back to Evan Carter, I think it all comes down to him getting everyday at bats. This was a really telling quote from Bruce Bochy that I want to get into in just a second. And I still haven't even gotten to the Rangers signing a reliever and the most important development of Rangers spring training. We're going to get into all of that and more. But first, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Then add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame in your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Now, there's just one last thing on Evan Carter before we get into Cole Ragans and all of these lefty pitchers that I desperately need to talk about. It's wild that they went from absolutely no news in spring training to just all of the news over the weekend while I wasn't recording. Anyway, Levi Weaver of The Athletic asked Bruce Bochy pretty much point blank of, Evan Carter's not making the opening day roster, right? Because it kind of felt obvious. Like, he's still in big league camp. They've made some cuts, but he's still there. And this is what Bruce Bochy had to say. I want to read the whole quote. It's a little long, but I wanted to give the whole thing because I think it's important. Anyway, Bochy said, "I don't want to be quite that strong. He's here, and I can tell you, I bet his thoughts are, hey, I'm going to do everything I can to make this club. So I'll just say, sure. He's a long shot, but he's here, and we're staying open-minded on what we end up doing. We talked about it the other day. It's going to be important that we find him playing time here to continue his development, but also just keeping him around because he's knocking on the door, to be honest. Just look at what he's doing. You're talking about a 20-year-old kid here, though, so what's more important right now? Continue his development or not playing every day here?" End quote. That was pretty interesting and pretty telling. Pretty long-winded way to answer a question that felt like it had a pretty obvious answer. He's played in 9 games in spring training so far, 14 plate appearances, has 3 hits, 5 walks to 4 strikeouts, an on base of 571, hitting .333. No extra base hits just yet, but he has been very, very impressive, obviously having some very good at-bats. The Rangers got an absolute steal out of him in the draft, it's looking like, in the second round of that 2020 draft when nobody really scouted him. There was a really good feature. I keep plugging so much of the Athletic stuff unintentionally, but they did a big feature, their prospects writer did on Evan Carter, that was really, really interesting. Gave some pretty good insight to how the Rangers were able to get this guy in the second round and have him be a top 100 prospect. Pretty much every single, actually, no, I would say every single major publication that has published a top 100 list, and he's all the way as high as, I believe, 26 or maybe 23. Baseball Prospectus was the one that had him the highest. The others had him somewhere in the 30s to 50s. It was kind of ironic that The Athletic did a huge feature on him and how great he was. And I think Keith Law had him at like 53 or something. So, but yeah, it's a really, really interesting story. And I think that it's all going to come down to him getting everyday at bats. If the Rangers think, you know what, this guy is capable of taking over every day in left field or in center field or left field or just wherever, then they're going to give him a shot. And I would not put it past this kid. He was so incredibly impressive in the time that I saw him. And I am really excited about his future in the big leagues, whether that's starts in March of this year or August, or if it even waits till next year. This guy is got a lot of promise and a lot of reason for hope. Another guy who's got a lot of reason for hope is Cole Ragans. We were talking about these lefties. The Rangers signed Will Smith, the veteran left-handed pitcher, not the actor, not the catcher. Unfortunately, that would have been really cool. I think any of those actually were pretty cool, but Will Smith is a veteran left-handed relief pitcher. They also designated Mark Mathias for assignment. I'll probably talk more about that on tomorrow's show because it kind of confused me that Mathias was the roster casualty. Anyway, Smith has spent several seasons in the big leagues, most recently with the Houston Astros. Unfortunately, can't hold that too much against him, but he has been in the big leagues since 2012. Started his career with Kansas City Royals, with Milwaukee from 2014 all the way to 2016. Spent some time with the Giants, was an All-Star in 2019 with San Francisco, went to Atlanta in 2020 through 2022, was traded at midseason, won a World Series with them, was a big part of them winning the World Series in 2021 against the Houston Astros, and then went to the Houston Astros and won another World Series. So he has won 2 different World Series. Didn't pitch all that much in the playoffs that I'm remembering with Houston. Didn't have the greatest start to 2022, which is why he was traded from the Braves. But was much better when he went to Houston. 24 games, 3.27 ERA, 24 strikeouts in 22 innings, and just 4 walks. So fewer than 2 walks per 9, strikeouts per 9, right around 10 for his career in 10 years in the big leagues. He has 10.8 Ks per 9. So that is a pretty good rate. A little bit better, actually pretty significantly better against lefties than against righties. So you got to be really smart about situations where you use him. The Rangers have 2 lefties in their bullpen, but they are not so much lefty specialists as they are just high leverage guys in Taylor Hearn and Brock Burke. It is not about them being left-handed. It is just about them being good, which is really cool. Very progressive for the Rangers to not worry too much about what kind of handedness they go. They're just really darn good relievers, and they're going to throw in high leverage situations where sometimes you need multiple innings because both those guys can do that really well. But another guy who, for a second, there was some thoughts about maybe him taking over in that lefty relief role. But it's seeming like he is very much going to stick as a starter, and that is Cole Ragans, who might be the most impressive, most important development in camp. Is that Cole Ragans is throwing hard. Cole Ragans is throwing really hard. On Sunday's game, he threw 18 pitches at 94 miles an hour or more while staying in the strike zone with 2/3 of him. Those two developments are absolutely incredible. They are huge for Cole Ragans. Ragans is a former first-round pick by the Rangers, made his big league debut last year. A guy who has had 2 Tommy John surgeries. The second one, I believe he got the injury right when he first got back on the mound after coming back from his first Tommy John injury. Just really heartbreaking stuff. But he came back and was pitching and was pretty good in the minor leagues. Made the Futures game in 2021. His 2021 season was really encouraging. It got blown up a little bit when he went to Frisco, but the fact that he was able to throw 80 innings in 2021 after not having pitched in the minor leagues since 2017. He was a 19-year-old in 2017, and he was 23 in 2021 when he finally got back there on the hill. Last year, he threw 94 2/3 innings in the minor leagues and threw 40 innings in the big leagues. So he is just about out of range of that prospect status. I left him off my top 30 in the preseason, and that feels like a mistake. I think you have 50 innings before you lose prospect status, and even that I was kind of debating. I mean, guys towards the end of that top 30, I mean, they're solid guys, and the Rangers do have a lot of depth, but I kind of looking back at it now and being like, why did I really do that? Well, the end of the season, and when he was in the big leagues, Cole Ragans just did not look very Cole Ragans. Like, the thing that he does very well is that he stays in the strike zone. He's not a huge strikeout pitcher, does have a very effective changeup that pairs very well with his fastball. By the way, the jump in velocity is a big deal, and one of the things that I watch very closely in spring training, and I wish that we could get more accurate readings on radar guns and stuff and data like that Baseball Savant has very readily available in the regular season, because I think it's very important. And with Ragans, who touched 99, which is not something I think he's ever done. Last year with his fastball in the big leagues, the day that we got, which it feels very similar to what I was seeing when he was in the minor leagues, he averaged 92 miles an hour with that four-seam fastball. Not a whole lot of velocity, but he did have a lot of vertical and horizontal movement, especially 10.7 inches of break, which is 4.7 better than the average on that fastball. So he spins it just like a freaking frisbee. And if he's adding velocity onto that, then like, my goodness. But his best pitch is by far the changeup, which is exactly 10 miles an hour slower than his four-seamer, which is right about what you want. Got a cutter that's fairly effective. Curveball that he busts out every once in a while that also works well with his other stuff. But he was compared a lot to Cole Hamels when he was coming up because, well, Cole Hamels was on the Rangers. His name was Cole. He was left-handed. Both of them had very good changeups, and it was like, yeah, that feels like an easy comp. But, I mean, the thing that he is not doing like Cole Hamels is he did not make his big league debut at the age of 22. He has breezed past that. He turned 25 this past offseason. I think he's probably going to start the season in AAA. I think that's most likely. But he made a lot of changes when he went into this offseason. One of the things that he really struggled with and why he didn't look like himself is Ragans is not a guy who is going to walk a whole lot of hitters. That is just not his MO. He is going to attack guys, and sometimes he's going to get lit up for it. But for the most part, he has been fairly effective. He's been fairly effective at getting strikeouts. At the minor league level, he has 11.1 strikeouts per nine. At the big league level, it was just 6.1. He has 3.6 walks per nine at the big league level. Actually, in the minors, he did struggle with that a little bit more so in the early seasons of coming back. But in 2022, in the minor leagues there, he was not quite as bad. It didn't feel like he was quite as bad at nibbling around the zone. But he was nibbling around the zone a lot in the big leagues and getting into bad counts and then having to throw fastballs in advantageous situations for hitters where they would know it's coming and they'd light it up, or he would end up walking them. And so he was kind of a 3 true outcome pitcher. It was like he was going to get a strikeout very rarely, or he's going to allow a walk or a home run. And it was just not a great big league start. Just the fact that he got to the big leagues at all is really exciting given where he's come from. But he made so many changes, it seems like, this offseason that are really, really working for him. He wanted to add some weight. He also wanted to improve his agility and his stamina. So he ended up gaining about 10 pounds, worked with his buddy from high school who was doing this visual camp. I'm kind of shaky on the specifics since I have not talked to him in person, and I don't think that he is going to be in Frisco to start the season next year like he was last year to talk at Media Day. But whatever he did, it really, really worked to improve his flexibility and his posture as well. He has never had a whole lot of velocity, and as a guy who is 6'4", listed at 6'4", 190, I think he might be probably closer to 200 now, which that's about what Cole Hamels is. Cole Hamels is 6'4", 205. Ragans 6'4", 190. So he's getting closer up to that. So the comparisons are getting even better. By the way, both of them have had incredible mustaches. Ragans has a fantastic mustache going right now, very fitting, and I think it works for him. Big fan of the mustache in baseball. It just feels like a very solid thing, and maybe that's what's led to this. Maybe it's the mustache power adding the velocity, but I think it's these changes. And he's a smart kid who's worked his freaking butt off, has been through so much, and if he is a starting pitcher, which at the end of last year, wasn't quite sure. Like, all right, maybe you throw him in the pen, but he doesn't have that much velocity, so I don't know how much impact he'll have as a high leverage reliever. But if he's, touching 97 regularly and touching 99, like, as a starter, that is a guy who is factoring very heavily into your rotation plans for 2024. I mean, the Rangers rotation in 2024 might look like this with DeGrom, Eovaldi, Gray, Heaney, and then Ragans. Maybe Ragans is going to be the one who sticks there as that number 5 spot and the only youngster in the rotation next year, because it's seeming like there's going to be one spot available, whether it's Heaney who leaves or whether it's Martin Perez who leaves. There's going to be probably one, maybe 2 spots in the rotation for who we thought was going to be Jack Leiter and Owen White duking it out for a spot there. Maybe Kumar Rocker or maybe Cole Winn. But it's looking like Cole Ragans is like, no, I'm in that freaking mix. You put me in there. I have made these changes. I am a starting pitcher, and I am dang good. There is a reason I was drafted in the first round. I still have that in me. I still have that potential. He's still only 25 years old, and I am so excited for this kid. Such a great dude, and just very, very excited to see what this means, if he can maintain this for the long term, if this is just the new Cole Ragans. But this is probably the most profoundly positive development in Rangers camp so far in spring training. I am so excited by it, even more so than Evan Carter kind of kicking butt and making people think about putting him on the big league roster. That wasn't as unexpected as Cole Ragans just coming in and touching 99. That's freaking awesome. I absolutely love that for him, and this is something that you definitely want to keep an eye out on. We'll probably talk a little bit more about his next start if he keeps that up and what it's going to look like for him, and a little bit about tomorrow, about the first cuts being made, sending some guys to minor league camp, and probably talking a little bit more about what Will Smith and this bullpen will look like, and Mark Mathias as well. But so much stuff happened this weekend, and it's been a great weekend, mostly outside of Leody. But that Cole Ragans stuff, I mean, really, I don't think I can undersell how much of a big deal it is. So, definitely something to keep an eye on, and something to put your spirits up, because we are, what did I just say? Like 36 days, 34 days away from opening day. So very much looking forward to seeing what this Rangers team is going to look like. Got some more questions, got some intrigue in these final few weeks of spring training. So thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen. For your next listen, go check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing to Locked On Rangers. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.